is CNN.
Before politics, a check of the business news. Myron Kandel joins us from New York. Mike.
Well, thanks, Lou. Stocks ended the day higher despite more economic reports pointing to a sluggish recovery. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed with a gain of just under 9 points at 3266 on active volume. The other key indexes finished higher as well. But the dollar fell to a new low against the German mark, down more than a pfennig to just under 139. It lost ground against the other major currencies as well. Interest rates moved lower today. The yield on the Treasury's 30-year benchmark bond dropping to 7.37%. That bond up 13/32 of a point. The strike at a General Motors parts plant forced the shutdown of 2 more assembly plants today. Parts shortages idling production today at plants in Missouri and Michigan. Almost 30,000 GM workers have been idled since the strike started last Thursday. And that's the latest in business news. I'm Myron Kandel at the CNN Business News Desk in New York. Stay tuned for Inside Politics next on CNN.
Today I'm announcing that we are committed to rebuilding Homestead Air Force Base.
The incumbent makes a promise in a storm-battered state with 25 electoral votes.
Now he's going after Medicare the same way he's gone after middle-class taxpayers.
The challenger on the attack before a carefully targeted audience. It's all part of Inside Politics 92.
This is Inside Politics 92 with Catherine Crier at the CNN Center in Atlanta and Bernard Shaw in Washington.
Thanks for joining us. President Bush was back in Florida again today, this time to review the much criticized federal response to Hurricane Andrew. The White House insists Bush is not playing politics, but with 25 electoral votes up for grabs in Florida come November, politics could not have been far from the president's mind. We switch live for more from our senior White House correspondent, Charles Bierbauer.
Well, politics and the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew have been very difficult to separate all week, Bernie. We will hear more from President Bush about what he found both in Florida and Louisiana when he returns to the White House later this evening. In fact, shortly after he gets back here, and we expect him in the early evening hours, the president plans an Oval Office address to the nation. Mr. Bush wants to report to the American people on the federal relief effort that he inspected today in both Florida and Louisiana. White House officials bristle at the suggestion that President Bush's Florida return trip to assess the hurricane recovery process has anything to do with politics. This is really serious stuff, says one senior official. We're not politicizing it. The president at Homestead, Florida, balked when asked about Governor Clinton's call for an investigation of relief efforts.
Well, look, let me say this, Jim. I'm not even going to take any political questions. I have tried, and I know the governor has, the senators have, congressmen standing with me have. Try to keep it out of the political arena.
The president's denial of partisanship was applauded at Homestead. Bush campaign aides say they expect the president in any event to win in Florida. Bush canceled a 2-day Western campaign trip this week to focus on the post-hurricane relief effort. The 1-week interlude from campaigning was never wholly free of politics and political innuendo. And even if the motive is not political, the pictures show a president involved in the nation's problems. While Mrs. Bush will remain in Florida Wednesday, the president will be back on Air Force One, this time with campaign staff in tow, heading for South Dakota and Texas. Bush's home state is by no means an electoral certainty. Before the Republican convention, the whole Bush campaign lacked certainty. The president's message and meanderings craved direction. That was BB, before Baker. White House and campaign officials say James Baker's return as chief of staff has already brought improvement.
That's been a reputation that's followed Jim Baker and followed him accurately, is that he does make decisions quickly, he makes them decisively, and we've been able to move through a lot of things this week and get a lot of planning done and expedite a lot of decisions.
Teeter and Baker are now in their fourth campaign together. They've not lost yet. Since Baker and a handful of close aides moved into the White House, they've kept a low profile. One senior official says that the Baker team got here the day before Hurricane Andrew struck and has done all it can do to keep its head above water ever since. Mr. Baker and his aides have been pulling double duty, both helping out with the cleanup in Florida and the cleaning out to some degree over at the Bush campaign to make things run smoothly there too. Bernie?
Charles, why does George Bush feel compelled to go on network television to address the nation, and why for only 5 minutes?
Well, I can't tell you why for only 5 minutes. Maybe he thinks he can tell us enough in that span of time. Mr. Bush, as we've indicated, has bristled all week at any suggestion that politics is the motivation for his efforts in cleaning up the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew. He's gotten quite angry at those suggestions. And yet there's always the question of when does politics stop and when does the policy start here at the White House. It is a very political year. Witness to that is the fact that Governor Clinton, too, will be in Florida. How do you separate the two? I'm not always sure, Bernie. I think the president has to be considered sincere when he worries about the people who've been affected down there, and I think the whole effort is sincere when they worry about how they get the president reelected. The two simply go hand in hand, and on both sides of the campaign, Republican and Democratic, seem to be inseparable.
Thank you. Charles Beerbar, live at the White House. Catherine?
Well, the president's quick decision to rebuild Florida's Homestead Air Force Base caught many defense officials by surprise. It's drawn a knowing nod from political strategists. More from CNN military affairs correspondent Wolf Blitzer.
Even before the Air Force has assessed how many hundreds of millions of dollars it will cost, President Bush says he's committed to rebuilding Florida's Homestead Air Force Base, destroyed by Hurricane Andrew.
Homestead is very important to our military. It helps combat the cocaine trade. It provides air defense, and it will be rebuilt.
Only the day before, many Pentagon officials had assumed that what the Mount Pinatubo volcano did to Clark Air Base in the Philippines last year, Andrew would do to Homestead, namely shut it down.
The president's announcement that he's going to rebuild Homestead Air Force Base is yet another example of how the military budget is used as a political football.
Homestead was almost on last year's base closure hit list, and given the shrinking defense budget, it was widely considered a candidate next year. The Air Force has alternatives, including Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina and Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. Publicly, the Pentagon says the decision was made on its merits.
Whatever year it was in, I mean, it's very important, and it's very clear that we are supporting the people of Florida and the people of these communities in their effort to recover.
Earlier, Bill Clinton showed that he, too, was not averse to supporting expensive military projects that involve jobs. He had endorsed a second Seawolf submarine, even though the Pentagon said there was no longer need for it. And he's not ready to second-guess Bush's Florida decision.
Well, I think it should be done if it's in the national security interest to do it. I think what we need to do is look at the facts. You know, I can't make a comment on it because I don't know what the facts are.
Politics can also help to explain why the Pentagon has recently reversed itself on other major spending programs, including the V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft and the M1A2 battle tank. Both projects were earlier described as a waste of money, but the Osprey will be built in Texas and Pennsylvania, and the M1 in Michigan and Ohio. And Mr. Bush is also expected to announce on Wednesday that he supports a large F-16 sale to Taiwan that will mean more jobs in Texas. Wolf Blitzer, CNN, the Pentagon.
On the road and on the attack today, Democratic presidential nominee Bill Clinton. CNN national political correspondent Gene Randall has that story.
Bill Clinton told senior citizens in Macon, Georgia Tuesday the nation's elderly would pay a steep price for George Bush's economic plan.
4 more years of George Bush means more millionaires with vacation homes and more older Americans having trouble paying their gas and electric bills in their own homes.
After defending himself against a series of White House assaults on his words and record, Clinton was poised to get back on the offensive. He chose a politically sensitive issue, Medicare.
Of the $294 billion in budget cuts over the next 5 years, Mr. Bush proposes more than $127 billion come from Medicare.
Clinton cited the so-called mid-session review, a White House document designed to report on the status of the budget. Clinton said the president embraced it as a fiscal blueprint And in doing so, he said, Mr. Bush gave his blessing to an assault on Medicare.
If you're a millionaire, his budget gives you a capital gains cut that will generate $500,000 over the next 5 years. But if you're one of 30 million Americans who depend on Medicare, his budget makes you $2,000 poorer over the next 5 years.
Clinton said his charges were backed up by a University of North Carolina study, which a Clinton campaign statement said pointed to a devastation of Medicare under George Bush. Clinton also promoted his own ideas for a health care plan with a heavy emphasis on controlling costs. But his thrust was the attack on George Bush. Bush campaign reaction to Clinton's claims was quick and predictable.
Clinton has been engaging in fear-mongering on this issue and in pandering to the senior citizen population of this country, because there is nothing in the Bush proposal that trims back on Medicare. It simply trims back on the increase that occurs in Medicare payments.
With 9 weeks to go before the election, Bill Clinton is once again back on the attack. Is it meant to sting? Said a Clinton strategist on Tuesday, quote, "We decided if George Bush is going to keep telling lies about us, we'd start telling the truth about him," unquote. Gene Randall, CNN, Macon, Georgia.
Also in Georgia today, a campaign bus tour with a difference. On this bus, the Democrats aren't in the driver's seat. As CNN's Bill Delaney reports, Vice President Dan Quayle is on the road and slashing at the Democrats.
Snaking through southern Georgia, Vice President Dan Quayle's bus caravan, bearing a message for the Deep South. A vote for the candidate from Arkansas could cost you your job.
His national economic strategy will probably cost the state of Georgia 40,000 jobs.
In Columbus, Georgia, near Fort Benning, a warning about Clinton's proposed defense cuts.
He is going to cut defense spending an additional $60 billion. And you know what that means? That's another 35,000 jobs that could be lost because of Bill Clinton's defense cuts.
Quayle continued to brand Clinton as a governor addicted to raising taxes.
Every time that Bill Clinton has had the chance, he has really soaked the middle class in Arkansas. They are paying more taxes today than they were when Bill Clinton was governor, before Bill Clinton was governor 12 years ago. That is a fact.
A fact Bill Clinton would dispute, an allegation key to the Republican strategy of painting issues with a broad brush, keeping it simple, not running so much on the Bush record as raising fears of what a Clinton presidency would mean. Higher taxes, lost jobs, not enough emphasis on traditional values.
We want Quayle!
Before a group of school children, Quayle played the role of a traditional father.
Just remember this. You mind your teacher, right? Because your teacher's trying to help you. And when you're at home, you mind mom and dad? And aren't you glad to be back in school?
At every stop along the way, the issue Quayle's made his own, echoed down the roadsides.
When we drove into town, I saw a huge sign out that said this: "Welcome, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for speaking out for family values." And I don't care what they say in Hollywood, we're going to continue to talk about family values.
As the Democrats run on change, Republicans continue to ask, who do you trust? Dan Quayle is doing a lot of the asking. Confident, fiery, and very much out front. Bill Delaney, CNN, Albany, Georgia.
Well, the political ad police have their binoculars, their radar guns, their statistical handbooks standing by. Coming up next on Inside Politics 92, we'll see how Bill Clinton's latest campaign ad holds up under their scrutiny.
Hey, Eddie, didn't you bring your lunch? This is junior high. You don't bring your lunch, you buy your lunch. Yeah, I knew that. Do you want an apple juice? This is junior high. You don't drink apple juice, you drink orange juice. Yeah, right.
Orange juice. It's got the vitamins, minerals, and taste that make you feel so good.
Hey, Eddie, you shouldn't slurp your orange juice.
Why not?
Because this is junior high.
100% pure Florida quality orange juice. It makes you feel so good.
Imagine a month in paradise with nothing to do but everything you've ever dreamed of.
Sounds like heaven.
The critics call Enchanted April a seductive fairy tale. 4 stars, lovely and lyrical. 2 thumbs up, romantic, warm, and funny. If you liked A Room with a View and Howard's End, you'll fall in love with Enchanted April, rated PG. Now playing at select theaters. Check local listings.
Exercise? This is the only gym I've got time for. My lunch hour's 4 minutes. Sometimes I get constipation. When it happens, I just take this little pill. It's X-Lax.
Only X-Lax pills give you 3 choices: regular or extra gentle when you need a little help, maximum relief when you need a little more. Today's X-Lax, for regular people who sometimes aren't.
What will be their strategy in the battleground states? What are they going to say to win over the swing votes? What's it going to take to unlock the door to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Keys to the White House, an election special Sunday night at 10 on CNN.
The political ad police have pointed their radar guns at Bill Clinton's newest television commercial, which touts Arkansas's economic accomplishments during Clinton's time as governor. The Republicans say the ad is misleading. CNN Special Assignment Correspondent Brooks Jackson sifts the facts from the pretty pictures.
Bill Clinton's latest television ad describes something like an economic miracle in Arkansas.
Arkansas now leads the nation in job growth. Incomes are rising at twice the national rate. 17,000 people move from welfare to work.
Well, is that rosy picture misleading? The Bush campaign says it is.
First, we're very happy that Governor Clinton appears to be willing to run on his record as governor of Arkansas.
So let's look again, carefully. First, jobs.
Arkansas now leads the nation in job growth.
Well, yes and no. Yes, the most recent figures show Arkansas did rack up the highest growth in non-farm employment during the 12 months ending in April. That does give Clinton some bragging rights, even though this year is the first time Arkansas has been in the top 5 since Clinton started his current tenure as governor in 1983. Now look at total employment in Arkansas, including farm jobs. It's grown 17% since Clinton took office, better than most neighboring states, but slightly behind the national average of nearly 19%. Sort of okay. Next, income in Arkansas.
Incomes are rising at twice the national rate.
That's pretty much true as far as it goes. Latest federal figures show average income per person went up 4.1% in Arkansas last year, almost, not quite, double the national increase. Average income in Arkansas was 49th in the nation when Clinton took office. Now it's up to $14,753 a year, but that's still only 47th, and still far below the national average. Next, welfare.
17,000 people move from welfare to work.
That's true, according to records of the state's workfare program. The Bush campaign says it's not the whole story, however.
From the time that Governor Clinton brought in his much talked about welfare reform program in, I believe, 1989, their welfare caseload has gone up 12%.
Well, that's true as well, more or less. CNN's analysis shows that despite Arkansas's efforts, welfare rolls increased 12.5% since Clinton took office. But thanks in part to an economic recession, the national growth in welfare families has been way over double that, up more than 34%, while Republicans ran the White House. The Clinton ad sticks to the facts, but picks those facts carefully. No false advertising, but no Arkansas miracle either. Brooks Jackson, CNN Special Assignment.
And coming up next on Inside Politics 92, 3 observers of the campaign scene join us for a roundtable discussion. On the agenda, some advice for the Bush Brigade. Stay tuned.
Have you thought about long distance lately? Are you getting the service you expected? Whatever happened to those big savings they offered you? Do they show up on your bill? The AT&T Any Hour Saver plan gives you the low prices you expect. Calls are just $10 for the first hour, then as low as 11 cents a minute. Come back to AT&T. Call 1-800-972-2442.
Is your savings plan too limited? Are there people it doesn't even cover? Is life too short for that? Is it time to come back to AT&T? The AT&T Any Hour Saver plan is easy. It could save you money on AT&T calls to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Call 1-800-972-2442 to come back to AT&T for free. Is your long-distance company getting nosy? Do they want names of people close to you? Do they want their numbers too? Is that any of their business? Do you really think so? With the AT&T Any Hour Saver plan, you won't have to give up your privacy or anyone else's. But you will get a price as low as 11 cents a minute after 5 and on weekends. Come back now for free. 1-800-972-2442. Did you know that with some companies you get 2 phone bills each month? Would you rather just get 1? Isn't life complicated enough already? With AT&T, you get 1 simple bill a month, not 2. Call 1-800-972-2442 and we'll switch you back for free. Are you still waiting for the savings you expected? Did you think they'd be bigger? Do you sometimes miss AT&T? For competitive prices, billing that's simple, and service that's personal, call 1-800-972-2442 and we'll switch you to AT&T for free. AT&T, you couldn't pick a better time to come back.
Here now to assess the latest political developments, Susan Page, national political correspondent for Newsday, Robert Novak of the Chicago Sun-Times, and syndicated columnist Mark Shields. Susan, with 9 weeks left in this campaign, has either George Bush or Bill Clinton given voters the economic roadmap they need to make a decision?
Well, I think Clinton's outlined with some detail his economic plan. The trouble that Bush has is that the roadmap for his second term that people generally look at, I think, is what he's done in his first term, and that people have found that to be kind of wanting. And his dilemma now is to try to explain that he's going to do something different in a second term.
Mark, Bob?
I think what he has to do, what President Bush has to do, is to put some flesh on the bare bones of his promise at Houston to cut taxes. And that's what they didn't want to do. That's what Jim Baker didn't want to do, apparently, at first. That debate is going on in the White House. But he absolutely has to say exactly what he's going to do on taxes, and there's going to be an across-the-board cut. Susan, as far as Governor Clinton goes, I think the general outlines of what he wants is there, but unless you know something I know, they have not told what the rate is going to be. They have not told what the rate on the alternative minimum tax, on the capital gains tax. They have not said what the rate will be on the payroll tax for health insurance. There's a lot he hasn't said either.
Bernie, I think the American voters have basically concluded they don't want George Bush back in the White House. And I don't think that they're persuaded at this point that Bill Clinton has the answers or has laid them out, or that either candidate has really laid out in any really compelling detail a plan for the future. I mean, there's a lot of, it's more than just the economics. It's a question of what's America's role in the world. What do we do? The war is over. Who are we? What are we about to become as a nation? Where do we fit in economically in this competitive world? I think that's missing. I think, unlike Bob, I think it's too late for George Bush to do it.
We just saw Brooks Jackson's piece on the Clinton ad. Does this kind of intense dissection of an opponent's ad work?
I don't really think so. I think it's...
We saw Clayton Yiter rebutting it.
Yeah, I think people are really turned off by all of that. I think what they want is broad picture. You say it's too late. Mark, why don't you go up to your estate in Cape Cod and take the rest of the fall off then? I mean the point of the matter is that there's still 2 months. There's still a lot of people out there who have soft opinions. I will say this, that George Bush will lose the election, absolutely lose it, if he just continues on his present route. He has to be specific on economics.
Has this hurricane handcuffed George Bush?
Well, it's given him an opportunity to look presidential, look like he's in charge, and to do something for a state that he absolutely must have if he's going to win the election. The really stunning news for Bush is that he's spending today in Florida and tomorrow in Texas, 2 states he should have nailed down long ago. And the fact that both those states are still in some doubt is an indication of how weak his political position is.
Let me just try and straighten out our friend Mr. Novak, who has these periods, these lapses when his cogency leaves him. Bernie, George Bush has had chance after chance after chance on the economy. He had it at the State of the Union. He's had it all through this year. I think it becomes less and less believable, and he becomes less and less credible the longer it goes, and we're past the convention now.
I'll agree with that, but that it is never too late. I will say that this hurricane has really hurt him because the whole thing is a distraction. It is away from the main event. He is in the sports shirt derby with Governor Lawton Childs of Florida. I don't know why politicians now can't wear a tie when they're talking to injured people, and I think it's been a negative for him.
Change of subject. Is Bush playing coy with these debates? Clinton and Gore have agreed to everything proposed by the Presidential Commission on Debates.
What it is they want Jim Baker to sit down at a table and try to bamboozle them like he did the Dukakis people 4 years ago, and the Clinton people say that isn't going to happen.
I think it's imperative. If I were doing George Bush's campaign, I think Bob's point about the Florida hurricane is a good one, that you have to switch, you have to change the chemistry of this campaign somehow. You've got to redefine it. I think an early debate, I mean, George Bush blew the chance at the convention, in my judgment. I think his last best chance of changing this campaign and the way people see him and Bill Clinton together is the debate. I'd do it in a hurry.
Well, one problem, though, is that Clinton's real challenge now is to make people feel comfortable with him. This is what a lot of leading Democrats say. If he can reach that hurdle where people feel that they'd be comfortable with him in the Oval Office, they'll vote for him. And that's something that a debate better than any other event in this campaign could do.
Susan, we started with you, we end with you. Everybody, thank you. Inside Politics will be right back.
I was seeing my parents off, and I realized...
Dad, what do you got in here? Gardening equipment?
They've planned their retirement for a long time.
Common sense says the time to plan for your future is today.
One day, it's going to be our turn.
And Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, can help you begin.
Debbie? One day, Jeff sat down to figure out how much we'll have for retirement.
How's it going, Einstein?
Very funny. Take a look at
I thought we were doing a pretty good job. At this rate, we'll never retire.
Over 2 million Americans trust their retirement savings to Fidelity with choices like Magellan Fund. Magellan's approach to stock investing has made it the #1 performing mutual fund for the past 15-year period. So call Fidelity now for this free booklet, A Common Sense Guide to Planning for Retirement. You'll also receive everything you need to take your first step. Call 1-800-525-7700. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
The following scenes may be unsuitable for sensitive viewers. They are the forgotten, these hungry, sick, dying children of the world. They need help so urgently. They need your help to fight disease, malnutrition, starvation. These children are the victims of circumstance, of chance. The children of parents who are helpless to help them. Please call this toll-free number now. You'll receive a free information video and more from Christian Children's Fund. By joining the thousands of other CCF sponsors, you can make sure a sick child can see a doctor. Your sponsorship also gives a child food, clothing, a chance to go to school, a future. Every day, 40,000 children die from hunger and preventable diseases around the world. To them, a CCF sponsor literally means the difference between life and death. Give a child a chance. Please call today for your free video.
A new study claims the television network's campaign coverage this year has favored the Democrats. Join us tomorrow for Inside Politics 92 and a discussion whether the electronic messenger is coloring the message. And that's all for this edition of Inside Politics 92. I'm Catherine Crier in Atlanta.
I'm Bernard Shaw in Washington. Thanks for watching. Lou Waters has a preview of what's coming up next on CNN.
Next, Bernie, the latest on relief efforts in hurricane-hammered South Florida. We'll have one woman's story of survival after the storm. From Dallas, we'll show you how homeless children are getting special help in school. And high costs and low dollar are keeping many Americans away from Europe this summer. The rest of Early Prime, next here on CNN. Join us.
Coming up, Early Prime continues, followed by Showbiz Today, after a word from your local cable systems, next on CNN.
Do you realize just how much difference there is in life insurance rates from one insurance company to the next? For instance, if you're in good health and don't smoke cigarettes, Garden State Life Insurance may be able to save you as much as 50% off the cost of your life insurance. That's right, 30, 40, 50% off what you'd have to pay for a comparable amount of coverage elsewhere. And not just this month, but year after year for the rest of your life. Savings like that are well worth looking into. So if you need $100,000 to $1 million or more of quality term life insurance, You owe it to yourself to get the facts fast by calling now. 800-257-1257, toll-free for this free information package, including a personal coverage proposal that shows you just how much your savings might be. There's no obligation, no sales pressure, and it could be a real eye-opener. For instance, as your Garden State Life representative can tell you,
if you're a healthy 40-year-old who doesn't smoke cigarettes, you may qualify for $100,000 worth of quality term life insurance at rates so low they're less than 55 cents a day.
how do we do it? First, you save because we offer this life insurance at these low rates only to people who are in good health. That cuts our risk and your premiums. Then, because this quality term life insurance is sold in amounts of at least $100,000 or more, you get the advantage of volume discounts. And it's easy to do business with Garden State Life Insurance because you deal with us directly. You're always just a phone call away. So call today, 800-257-1257, toll-free, 257-1257 for your free personal coverage proposal. No obligation, no pressure. Discover how this quality term life insurance could save you as much as 50% off your premiums every year for the rest of your life. 800-257-1257, toll-free. Call Garden State Life Insurance for your free information today, 257-1257.